Welcome back to Interior Analysis. I'm David Jones,
I'm Evan Westman.
I'm Jelani T. Kelly.
and today we're discussing The Silence of the Lambs. Ooh, popular movie. Clickbait. So, have you guys seen it before?
Nah.
No, we came into this completely blind. We just came to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, was that not what we do here?
No, but I thought Evan saw it before, right?
Oh, before this time, yes, I had twice, but not for a while. And I am really glad you had us revisit this because I forgot how good this movie is. I don't know if I
That is.
just missed it the first couple times. I think I might have because it was a while ago. I think I was like 16 the first time I saw it and 20 the other time. And I didn't realize that it's that good. I think I was also really tired the first time I watched it. Like I remember it got to the just before Hannibal escaped and my brother was like, "Oh, we should finish." And I was like, "I know it's good, but I need to go to bed." So I wish that wasn't the case cuz I bet if I had watched this for the first time like fully conscious, it would have hit much better. Or if I was a few years older. It's one of those where I wish I could erase my brain and watch it for the first time.
I did, but I didn't have to do the brain erasing part.
See, it's easier when you get past the first step.
Yeah.
But okay, so
You can insert a laugh track sound.
how was what would you think as a blind view? How was the first impressions for you?
It wasn't as scary as I thought it'd be. I heard things about this movie and how scary it was. I expected a lot more eating and death. It was cool though, and I'm glad I finally understand that it puts the lotion on the skin reference. But now I'm pissed off because I can't figure out why it was quoted. Also, I want to know how Hannibal got that pen. I'm mad that they didn't show it. He just had it in his mouth. I don't know how he got it. Yeah, it was cool.
Alrighty.
Great.
Yeah, I'm down with that. This was, I think, the fourth time I've seen it, but it might be the fifth, and I'm just forgetting. But yeah, this is a favorite of mine. It just always delivers in a way like Alien, similar to me, the original, where I can just put it on and I'm always just satisfied. And I usually end up picking up on something new. And with this movie, I picked up on, for me, it was a lot of the just Hannibal mind tricks that I just kind of took at face value before, but I saw them at work now and I really enjoyed that. But was anything different for you, Evan? Other than just general appreciation, was there anything that you were like, wow, this changed my whole it either aged better or you just saw it different?
I think
Evan's a cannibal now.
Oh yeah, I got all on his ideology. No, I think it was largely just I know how to watch it more and pick up on the subtext, and it probably helps that I know the story a lot better. I think there's some cases and again, this is why I love rewatching stuff where sometimes the first time you see something you're just kind of trying to keep up, and then you need the second time to actually see what's going on. The whole theme of gender in the workplace where Clarice is being it's putting us in her point of view with how her male coworkers are treating me. That went way over my head the first time. I don't remember if I clocked it the second time, but now it's impossible to miss. I've also heard people talk about this a lot more. I've listened to a few podcasts and I've seen it come up a lot in conversations about portrayals of trans characters with Buffalo Bill. Personally, and obviously I don't have much authority on this as a cis man, but it reads pretty decently to me in itself, from a 2020s perspective. But I have seen it broken down, and I agree with this that there is kind of a clear line you can trace from the portrayal of Buffalo Bill here to ideologies the ones J.K. Rowling and others like her have been spreading the past few years. And I'm not saying that this movie is to blame because it's part of a much larger trend apparently, but it's just kind of yeah, this maybe contributed to that in not a great way. But within the text itself, like I don't believe that this is like transphobic in itself. But I was like tracking that more consciously this time because I've just seen it talked about so much in between the last time I saw this.
Yeah, I agree with you. And like it's one of those things where I think especially when you look at it in 1991, like because it's really, to me, it's like Hannibal's the character who tells you like he's not really, and in that lingo, transgender wasn't around then, so the term
Right.
was transsexual, and it was like he's not really that. He's using that as a guise for his terrible crimes, and like that's enough. At first, when I saw it, I think like because the first time I watched it, definitely didn't pick up on any of that either, and then the second time when I was a little bit older and I saw it, I was like, okay, how does, I don't know if this like fully tells me, I don't know if it fully deals with the issue or not, because like it's coming from Hannibal Lecter, and like I don't know how much we're supposed to really trust him or like be on the side of his opinion. So it was a very, I'm still not like 100% sure in how I feel about it, but I know it's like compared to other things, it definitely is not transphobic.
Yeah, I think it's just the portrayal that sticks in our head is like Buffalo Bill as this predator. And if that's like one of your only exposures to trans characters, which for a while it might have been, and maybe still is for some people, like that does have an impact. So again, I don't super like blame anyone who made this book or movie, but like it is just kind of a reminder like representation matters, so we got to do that carefully. But I don't think we need to cancel Silence of the Lambs for it. And within itself, as you said, like it does cover itself, I guess. That's my take, and others that I've heard.
Yeah, it's never got to the point where I've heard anyone want to cancel it. At least
I haven't
from
either.
any like, yeah, from anyone's like online people cry for whatever, but anyone from the community I know IRL, this and White Chicks in the clear. We are with them. We
Is
stand
White
by them.
Chicks in the clear? I just
A lot of my, especially a lot of my trans women friends, like that is their go-to favorite movies. That and Girls Trip.
really okay. I haven't seen White Chicks in a long time, but I would not have expected that to age super well.
And like I don't know about people online because people say what they want, but from people I know IRL, everyone has different tastes. I love White Chicks, so it could just be like my friends and stuff. But it is what it is. They love them, and they're trans. They're not going anywhere. But let's begin. Let's start with the first topic,
Well,
which was
David, before we get into the topics,
Yes.
I wanted to ask. I figured, Jelani, you haven't seen these since you just watched Silence of the Lambs for the first time for this. But have you, David, seen Hannibal or Red Dragon?
I've seen Hannibal. I have not seen, yeah, because Hannibal's the one directly after, right? And then Red
Yeah.
Dragon. I have seen Hannibal. I have not seen Red Dragon.
Okay, I watched both of those after watching this because I saw that they were both streaming. So I just was curious if you had. Red Dragon's the prequel, by the way, and then there's other Hannibal stuff out there, like the show with Mads Mikkelsen, but I haven't seen that. I think there's a couple other things, but
I heard the show's pretty good.
yeah, I've heard good things about it as well. And Mads Mikkelsen is always great. But I've heard it does do a little bit to like demystify the character, I think. And I don't know if it's supposed to be before or after Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to ask that before we got into the topics.
But yeah, so we'll start with your first topic, Jelani, for character motivation. So take it away.
Character motivation. I'll be talking about the three main people: Clarice, Buffalo, if that is his first name, and the cannibal. I just essentially just listed their characters' motivation because they're pretty much what I think drives the plot. You got Clarice. She wants to save a soul to stop the screaming of the childhood trauma she experienced. It's spelled out pretty well. It's even shown to us how important this goal is to her because of the spelled out rule of not giving Lecter any personal information. And I think either in the first meeting, if not the first, then the second, she does it anyway. to get any information Lecter knows out of him to help her solve this case with serial killer man. I forget for Buffalo Bill how it was worded or what exactly was said. Was it his motivation kill because he's lost in his identity, or was that his excuse to kill the women?
I feel like they don't go too far into his like psychology with it. It's hard to look at the mystery of it like without knowing where it ends and like be along for that ride now that I know. But I feel like they're trying to like hide like what is he killing these women for, and it's to use their skin, and that as I recall that revelation comes pretty late. So I felt like that was like their kind of final note of like that's his motivation when they're searching for it. In terms of like any deeper reasons, I don't remember there being much speculation on it.
I'm bringing that up because I think Lecter said something along those lines.
That's the thing. So like Lecter says, and it's like not so much a motivation, but like he describes it as like what's the psychological drive, and he says it's coveting for him. But like, can you trust that? Because in the end, you realize his first victim was Lecter's patient, and this could have all just been like his manipulation to get revenge and get out. And he knows what he has to say to make like the police and society angry at somebody who's doing something like that. So I don't know, like part of me is like he could be just so on point because he is that level of smart, but like also the other part of me is like he's that level of smart that he could just also be leading them in a certain direction the way he wants them to see the case, so he can execute everything he has to do to get out and get what he wants. So I don't know.
I guess I was trusting him more than you guys, because I don't know if it's just you, David, or if both of you have pointed to like him possibly being deceptive. I don't see any reason to distrust. Like, he seems to give them everything they need. He's just a little bit, he makes them work for it.
That's why you'd get eaten. You are dinner.
Well,
he'll eat you.
At least I'll make someone's day.
I don't know if that's the way you should be looking at that, but okay. I think I was saying about Buffalo Bill, I think to have this question unanswered by the end of the movie would have made for an unsatisfying movie, because it's more like this first movie reads more like a mystery / thriller than a horror movie. And then Lecter, his character motivation not entirely clear, and we were just speaking about that. And I'm okay with this. Even if there weren't a sequel, I think I'd still be okay with this. Bill is the main threat in this movie, the antagonist to Clarice's protagonist. I don't know if I'm using those words right. It's probably a better term. Lecter doesn't need a reason to help her. Often that's the draw with serial killers to begin with. Why do they kill? I like that this question is never answered with him in this. And then there's also his lack of motivation to kill Clarice, and then motivation to help her. Like, those are entirely two separate things. Like, he doesn't have to kill her. He doesn't want to kill her. It doesn't seem. And then he's also motivated to help her. But in his motivation of helping her, is he really just helping himself, like David was saying? And both of these don't get answered either, which, again, I'm fine with, and it adds to the suspense and draw of the character, I think. Yeah, it's crazy.
I have a question, and I noticed it with this rewatch. Is it like, you know the part where like she's leaving and then like that nasty stuff happens and he like runs up to the glass and he's like, Clarice, come back, and then he gives her like the anagram clue. Was he always gonna wait till she walked away and then run to the glass, or was it actually that like lewd incident that like made him empathize with her? How did you guys take that?
Is that when he rubs her hand or finger?
No, it's after their first meeting, and then she walks past, and then like the one inmate does this thing and it hits her. And then like when she comes back, they learn that the inmate died because Hannibal whispered to him all night and he choked on his tongue.
I was confused by that too, because if Clarice just walks out, then like what happens, I guess.
Right.
That confuses me on a number of levels. I feel like he is intrigued enough by her from the start that like maybe he just is like testing to see how worthy of a like intellectual opponent she is, like if she's gonna give up easily. Maybe that's why he doesn't give her the information she needs at the end of that conversation. I don't feel like that is a satisfactory answer, though.
Right. I agree. It left me a little confused. Like, was that really just, I don't know. It's just, I really don't know. It's like either that was enough, like you're saying, it's either that was enough for him want to help her, or he was always just going to do that and she proved herself, and then he was doing mind games and wanted her to walk out before screaming. And it's like, I don't know which one I like more, because I like Hannibal when he's like quiet and really chill, can eat a tongue without his heartbeat going above like 62 or whatever they said.
Yeah. What was the point in that one thing that happened to Clarice?
What we just said.
That first meeting, the stuff on her face.
That's what it was. Was it just for him to empathize? Like,
I don't know. Because I feel like you could have like it does seem like it's having some kind of purpose, because you could, if you just want the shock value there, you could have that happen just after they like you don't have to break up their conversation that way. I don't really understand it either. Maybe there's interviews where they justify it.
Isn't there a way to justify that? I don't
Maybe
know.
not.
I'm sorry, I wasn't.
I really don't know if there is. I've thought about it. It's like been the most like main thought I've had since watching it this last watch, because I'm just like, a lot of this movie, I think they're really good at that and like making sure they don't cut corners, but like that to me was like the weirdest thing that they just put in for no reason. I was like, why is this here?
How did Jodie Foster feel about that? Did you know? Did she ever comment?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know.
Is that?
She didn't come back as Clarice in any of the other ones, so maybe that. Yeah,
they recast her as Julianne Moore in Hannibal for some reason, even though the other, I mean, it's still Anthony Hopkins, and even I'm forgetting the character's name, but they bring one other character back who's also the same actor, I'm pretty sure.
It was gross.
Was.
If you had things to say about motivation, whatever you saw as their motivation.
Yeah, well, as a contrast, like to Red Dragon, I was appreciating more in hindsight the fact that they give Hannibal a somewhat relatable motivation in terms of like just leaving the prison that he's in to go somewhere a little bit nicer. We established that Chilton is a pretty bad dude on like both just kind of in general, but also to his prisoners. Like at the end of the movie when Hannibal says he's having an old friend for dinner and it shows Chilton, I'm like, I don't hate that just because it does such a good job making us hate Chilton.
I was applauding. I was standing up and I was like, yes!
And I don't love...
That's a great line, though.
It makes me kind of uncomfortable that I'm, like, siding with a cannibal, but it's like, I mean...
But, like, even in his breakout, you kind of are, too. Like, he's biting that guard's face, and I'm like, yes, get him. Like, I don't know. The movie is that good that I'm just kind of like, get out, Hannibal. You deserve this.
Oh, bit of trivia that I found out. This is away from the point I was making, but I talked to my improv teacher about my topic, and I'll probably bring him up again later, but he told me that his acting teacher plays that guy who gets his nose bitten off, which was pretty cool. So a couple degrees of separation there, but that was kind of a cool thing I found out.
What was his name? It was something with a P, right?
I don't know. But he's the guy
the one who he steals, or the one who gets his head bashed against a bar?
I think it's both. Like he bites his nose and then he disguises himself as that guy when he's walking out. Like, and it's the dude on the stretcher. That's the guy.
Yeah, he has this. Okay, he steals his face.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the point I was starting off with. Like the fact that Hannibal has like something that he wants, like he has a carrot instead of a stick as the motivation. In Red Dragon, they kind of have more of like threatening him with punishments, and I feel like that's a harder thing to do just in this situation where he's already in prison. There's so little left to take away from him. It doesn't work as well
Why the hell is it called Red Dragon?
because of the killer in that, played by, well, it's kind of spoilers, but not really, Ralph Fiennes. Yeah, it was. I thought it was fine. Like, it's basically
Ha!
the same. What?
Is the
Ralph Fiennes.
Ah,
Fine.
okay, yeah, okay. Oh, all right,
You
I
ate
get it.
that.
Anyway, it's
I get it. He ate it because of
yep. I
can-
get it too. I
he has to go somewhere soon. Yeah.
I'm trying to not walk into any more puns here. But in Red Dragon, like, it's basically the same movie as Silence of the Lambs. And, well, I shouldn't say it that, but it's a very similar setup where it's like Ed Norton is basically doing the same thing as Clarice, as he's just like consulting Hannibal in prison to help him catch another killer. And it's kind of like Silence of the Lambs, but like the quality is turned down like 30% on everything. So it's still like okay, but I feel like it's the same as like I'm never going to watch Kingsman: The Golden Circle because I'd rather just watch Secret Service where everything is the same but better. Like, it's a similar thing, I feel like. But long story short, I like their decision to give him something relatable as a motivation here instead of just we're going to put you in more of a prison. Because that's kind of all they have in Red Dragon, and it does not work as well.
Yeah, I like his motivation. I like, especially like, just the first time, to your point of always having that second rewatch, even this movie, I feel like, because of the way he speaks and how fast and confusing he is and how little time we have with him in total of the film. Like, it was like really the third watch where I saw like, wow, this character, not only does he have like a real desire and drive, but like he's really ebbing and flowing with what's happening in real time with the plot. Like when he gets lied to and the ruse of being able to be freed and having to get sent to Tennessee, like he's always ready to go, and I was really enjoying that.
Yeah, and I like the mystery that we have with him a bit too, where we get just enough setup, I feel like, before Clarice first meets him, where it's like, this guy is dangerous and he'll get in your head, so don't let him. But we don't quite know how. One of the things that I feel like is the best for like power scaling him as a villain is when we hear that Miggs choked on his own tongue. We don't know anything about what Hannibal said, but it's like, okay, he's that manipulative that he can just get in your head like that. But we don't know how. I feel like it's good, like, cracking rules with monsters. Like,
Evan saw some different motivations, which I found intriguing. This means the main three had multiple motivations, I believe, which obviously makes them the most captivating to watch, which is why they're the main three. We also knew the most about them because of this. I can't tell you a single thing about any of the other characters in this besides maybe a personality trait.
well, another thing I like with it too, in terms of motivations, is that it gives Clarice more of a personal stake, which you were kind of talking about earlier, Jelani, with like she has this like ghost in her past that she's trying to like find redemption with. Another thing that I did not clock at all the first time that I watched this. But also for her career, like she's still a student at the FBI, so this is going to be like a major way to set the tone for how the rest of her career will go. I just really like that in this kind of movie, because I feel like a lot of detective stories, like you still kind of get, in terms of the actual case, like Clarice doesn't know anyone involved in it. She doesn't have any kind of, like, it doesn't involve some politician who is going to like make some policy that will affect her personally. And this doesn't do any of that, so she still kind of can be detached and objective when looking at the case, but there is personal stakes for her that we can actually latch onto beyond just like she wants to get this killer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a point that I check out with a lot in mystery. I'm going to say mystery based stories, whether it's like detective fiction or like crime movies, anything like that.
What, the fact that the main character doesn't have a personal stake?
Yeah, like I probably shouldn't be shitting on this movie, but a reason that I check out of several parts of Citizen Kane is that the like POV character of that movie is this journalist who just is the most like nothing character. He might as well be, he has about as much personality as like your avatar in a video game.
Damn.
He's just kind of this shell that hears everything from everyone else. I'm not saying that Citizen Kane is bad because of that, but it is a point that I kind of check out of with it. And it's certainly not the only movie that does it, but I feel like it's one of the most extreme versions of that kind of character.
Is he the Citizen Kane?
No, he's just learning about Charles Kane's life, but like he's kind of like the frame story that we view it all through. I just find it a little bit frustrating how aggressively bland he is. I shouldn't be using that as an example, but that's the one that's coming to mind. There's plenty of
blandness make him unique though?
What is it?
Like doesn't that ultra blandness make him unique in a way?
Perhaps, but not in a good way, I guess.
Well, I'll use this to segue into my little topic of Hannibal. From like what we haven't really talked about, what really struck out to me this time was like, and it was really his one of the first things he says to Clarice when she walks in was how this is the Belvedere in Florence, and he's talking about the structure. And then Buffalo Bill lives in Belvedere, Ohio. So like that to me, I was like, he's known. And then like that's when all the other pieces of like all his other anagrams of like, why else would he have the head of the other person, that Buffalo Bill's first victim, in that storage unit for all these years? And then I like freeze framed on the newspaper clipping in the beginning, and like it says Buffalo Bill skins fifth, but like the whole article is about Hannibal and the guy above Clarice who like arrested him and like all that stuff. And I was like, oh my god, like this dude got arrested like 8 years ago, and he has been waiting for this day that someone comes down so he can tell them where his storage unit is with the body, because he knows who the killer is. But he leads them along on like this dirty trail of insults and just like dehumanization and manipulation. And I'm kind of in love with it because he's iconic. But I it really blew me away as far as like, because everyone says like, oh, he's only on the screen for like 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is. And like the impact this guy has, from like iconic dialogue to an iconic performance, which is very limited because he's in a cage or he's like in a straitjacket, and just like voice and face, and to all of the way he's baked into the plot. Like you guys were saying of how like they kind of build him up. Don't walk up to the glass. Don't give the personal information. What does she do on the first time? She walks up to the glass. What does she do by the end? She's given up her whole childhood. It's like we really get to see throughout this whole story how this one character really has been proven to us to be exactly who we were introduced to be. And it's so satisfying, and it's so limited to only have 16 minutes with him. So I don't know. I find it really amazing. I find it like a feat for storytelling and screenwriting. I think it's very well done.
Is it Hopkins?
Mm-hmm.
Hopkins?
Yeah.
Did he get the Oscar for this?
He did. This is
this cleaned
third.
up at the Oscars the year. I think it won at
for
least
multiple
5
awards.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the
Damn.
third and most recent film to win the quote-unquote Big Five, which is Best Leading Actor, Best Leading Actress, Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture.
Damn. What was the most recent?
That this was. The only
this
reason
is the
Everything Everywhere
Jesus.
didn't do it was because Brendan Fraser won for The Whale.
I'm not gonna. I bashed that movie. I'm not gonna say nothing else about it.
I mean, all deserved though. Like I
Very
don't know.
much so.
I don't know what this is up against, but like I'm not mad at any of those wins. I'm
Ever so quiet.
I'm saying for Silence of the Lambs, Jelani. I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
Oh yeah, we're back on that.
Everything Everywhere.
Come back to us.
Okay, will no longer be silent like a lamb.
And this is off topic, but this stuck out to me this time. This movie is probably my favorite movie that uses the reverse shot technique. Like the amount of shot reverse shots, that's like 70% of the cinematography in the film.
It's so off-putting.
You don't like it in this movie?
No, I'm good with it between Hannibal and Clarice. The scenes between them flowed really well when they did the close-ups and all that, but the other times, it made me uncomfortable.
I'm 100% with you there.
Wow, I loved it.
Like it works with Lecter, but then when characters are looking directly into camera, like
they were looking at me, bro.
And like I get what it's going for in a lot of cases, where it's like trying to put us in Clarice's POV. But there's just some places like there's one scene where I think she's like going. It's pretty late. She's like going over parts of the case with her one friend from the FBI there,
friend.
and they use it there, and it's just not the right time for that shot. I feel like,
and it's only like half of it though, like half of their conversation. They don't use it for the whole conversation,
and it doesn't require. Like I always feel like when I edit scenes, and granted, I'm not saying like this is the best technique, but I like a go-to that I sometimes use is like save the close-up for something big. So when you overuse, and I remember seeing a review of this like sometime soon after I first watched it, that was like there's so many close-ups, and I didn't track that when I watched it, but now I like had that in my head, and it's like, yeah, there's so many close-ups, and a lot of them work, but there's a decent amount of them that don't, and it's really my only gripe with the movie, but it does take me out of it every time a character that's not Hannibal or Clarice is looking directly into camera.
So what about the reverse shots that they're not looking directly into the camera? Do they still work for you?
Yeah, the rest of it's fine. It's just fine when it's like right up in their face and they're looking right into camera. Like that's
Oh yeah, I think when they look head on, it works best to represent their relationship visually. But I just the amount of reverse shots that aren't just like head on looking into camera shots, like it's still so much of how this film is just visualized through the cinematography. And I found it very basic but very effective.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. But as long as they're not, I don't want them looking at me. They shouldn't know I'm watching them.
Yeah, it takes me out of it too much. Like and again, it works sometimes. Like this, when the scene is dramatic enough that it calls for it, it works really well there. It's just in I think it's like the first scene with Crawford, it does that, where it's just it's not the right time, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my favorite use when it's head on is, I forget what she says or what's revealed to her, but then like Hannibal also comes into the frame and you see his reflection in like the left kind of third, and I really enjoy that moment. That's like my favorite head on reverse shot moment. But yeah, I agree. Like if it's gonna be head on, like you're saying, it's uncomfortable. It feels like they're staring into you. Like that's probably reflective of what Hannibal's manipulation is with Clarice. It's that trans kind of pulling you out. So I think that feels really good for that character and those dynamics. But when it comes to those other moments, yeah, I did notice the amount of direct into the camera shots was a bit much for me. But I also liked the POV shots, which I found very like nuanced for 91. I didn't think we were doing POV shots like that, and there's quite a few.
How so? Like what's an example?
Like character, like they put you like there's the one where they're training and then they call Clarice and it cuts to Clarice directly in her POV and you literally move as her head looking at the person.
Oh yeah, she's going down the hallway, right?
I'm not sure. It's in like a gymnasium.
Oh.
And then it's when she's talking to her one friend who eventually solves the case in the end. And then at the end, like all the Bill POV shots where he's literally just like you're in the Predator's view and he's tracking her with the night goggles.
Oh yeah. And then he cocks the gun. He should have just pulled the trigger. Come on, Bill. You're better than that.
Now you're better than that. You should have killed her. Keep on killing. Make the suit. Make me a suit. How much does he charge?
What?
I don't know.
No. No. We,
I'm trying to think about it. And yeah, Hannibal, great last line, and it's iconic. I also didn't notice. Did he dye his hair? Like, what a getaway king! Like, he was like, I have to change how I look. I have to change
yeah,
the
he
gig.
did. He was blonde or something, I think.
Right?
Was he blonde?
It looked
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. I was like, is it just how the sun and the light? But it looks a little blonde to me. It looks like he got a little self dye kit, went to the motel, had himself a night, maybe threw a bath bomb.
Hannah blonde.
Oh my god, that's the color.
Have a nice
Hannah
Chianti.
blonde.
He's gonna have a good dinner.
Farva beans.
That's another character. Doesn't he get a POV shot too? Like that weird guard at one point where he's looking directly in. Not a POV shot, my apologies. The way he's looking directly into the camera, head on shot. feel
Yeah,
like
I think
there's-
so.
Yeah. I use that a lot. But yeah, Hannibal, really, what a standout. And he's made itself into the zeitgeist. So good for him. Amazing performance. But that's all really I have.
I think my favorite thing with him is how little he needs to be so intimidating. Like, I was tracking this time when we first meet him, like, we get the warning, no personal information. He uses the tiny amounts that he has, just like, he knows that Crawford is sending her down and that she is, like, a trainee, I think is all that he knows. And that is enough for him to already be getting in her head from the word go. Like, that is some really great power scaling that I like. And that continues throughout. Like, when he's in the cage in that huge room, I think when they bring him to Baltimore, he needs very little to beat those guards and escape. Like,
He needed the pen. How did he get the pen, Evan?
I think it's when Clarice gives him the folder, I want to say.
Yeah, no, it's when dude puts the folder down with the pen.
So that moment of movie magic
Chilton.
didn't work for you.
How did he get it? Like, how did he get it
I
without?
write that off just as movie because like at that point we're like an hour and 10 in and they've established
should've
that like this
shown it-
character is always like just for some reason has this insane ability to like mastermind things and like that guy puts the folder down before they move him and then like he has that close up of the pen and then they go to his eyes and then they cut away.
How did he get the pen, David?
See, I don't feel like I need to see it.
He should have like. Cause what if I'm a cannibal?
Like if
Then
this
I
was
need
the
to-
beginning of the movie, I would need to see it. But like they've established the character enough that I'm buying it.
What if I'm in a straitjacket and a cannibal, and somebody puts the pen down, and I gotta be like, I saw this exact same thing in Silence of the Lambs. I need to get out and eat people, but I don't know how to pick up. I don't know how he got the pen in his mouth.
Exactly.
They didn't show that, so
Well, they don't want it to be a tutorial.
Exactly. But if the
man.
viewers know and they have any instructions, let us know.
I always assume that picking locks is way harder in real life than they make it look in movies.
Oh yeah.
There's a number of things like that, but I always assume that that's like very
Climbing
difficult.
stairs. I feel like that's difficult in real life. Like walking upstairs. I don't know how people do it in movies.
Well, I got to do that for 10 hours tomorrow, so I'll let you know if I find any tricks.
I'm not a cannibal, guys. I promise.
Phew, okay, we can move on now to scene work.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I hope I don't go too off the rails with this topic because I've been thinking a lot about scene structure since watching this in like everything that I've been watching. Because the scenes with Hannibal and Clarice are excellent. We've already been spending a decent amount of time talking about it. But I was kind of trying to figure out why. There's a lessons from the screenplay video that breaks down one of the scenes with them into 3-act structure. And I'm not saying that it's wrong or anything. I think it's a good way to break it down, but I feel like there's more to it than that I've been trying to get into, and I've been talking to my improv teacher about it the past couple of classes. And I brought him this list of like, what do we need to establish by the end of a scene? Like us, and when I say scene, I mean like a scene where we are gonna like sit with the characters for a while, and like it's a few minutes long, and it's not just like doing little plot work. Like, so the list that I've come up with is setting characters goals, resources limitation, currency, and he added the word tactics to currency, and stakes. So I feel like, and I'm not super solid on this, but I've been thinking like maybe that's like the list of things that you need to establish by the end of the scene, and how you reveal that is, that's kind of the fun of it. My improv teacher had, I guess it was kind of his way of breaking it down, was like there's four sections to a scene, which is meet, entwine, crisis, and change. And thinking about like the Clarice and Hannibal scenes, you could probably mark those off with all of them, especially like the first couple. There's a pretty clear like meet, entwine, crisis, change for that. And I didn't hear him go into a ton of detail there, but it feels similar to like the breaking it into three act structure. A phrase that he uses a lot, my teacher, that I was thinking about with this, is finding the game, which kind of means like figuring out what the scene is about. And in improv, that typically takes a little bit longer because you usually start with just like one thing, like you get a location or a relationship or maybe just a word. And then you kind of like got to figure out with your scene partner what a lot of the other things are. In scripted scenes, we usually get characters and setting immediately. We know those things going into it. And a lot of times we'll know some of the other elements too. Like we'll know their goal, or we'll know what resources they have, or the stakes. Sometimes we don't, but a lot of times those are things we do know. But sometimes it kind of takes a minute to establish like what this scene is going to be about, or like what the point of tension is. And I feel like the Clarice and Hannibal scenes are pretty clear with that, like finding the game of, all right, you need information. I want to know things about you. So that's our currency. You give me personal details. I help you with this case. I don't know exactly where I'm going with all of that, but I feel like those elements are just really clear and really on point here. Do you guys have like other thoughts on that, or like are there elements that I'm missing or that we don't necessarily need?
Like from the scenes from the film, or like when we write our own scenes and we're trying to think of like what we need to have in that scene to make ourselves like content with what we wrote.
I'm kind of saying in general, like I was kind of expanding my view out to other stuff, and I've been going back and forth with just like everything that I've been watching and writing since watching this movie. I feel like all of those things I listed are on display in the Hannibal Clarice scenes, and even some others, but I'm just wondering if like that is a satisfactory list of things that need to be established.
The power dynamic, does that count in any of them? Who has the power in the scene? The command? Who's controlling the scene? Can that be included in anything?
Yeah, like I've been wondering if stuff like that is a product of those other elements I was listing.
Oh, for sure. Because like when you were saying like the currency, like that totally establishes their dynamic, and like the power will shift depending on where we're at in the story and what the characters are doing and what they need. But like that's definitely like that's the dynamic. That's what you love. You love, like we said, we love the scenes with Clarice and Hannibal because they work. You get really excited when you see her walk back and go and talk to him because you know you're about to get something good because their dynamic just is satisfying. So for me, it's like, and I take this from Hal Prince, late director from Broadway. He said like any scene in a musical needs to move the plot and move the character, and if it doesn't do both, then it needs to get cut. And for me, that's like pretty much how I feel about any scene in general. If I'm not getting something from the plot or the character, like something's really getting something out of it, then I don't feel the need. Like, why am I watching this? And I think there's very few scenes in Silence of the Lambs where like that isn't on display, where you're not, establishing the world, establishing the character, establishing the plot and the issue, and then just letting it like escalate kind of beautifully.
I really want to see like a 30-second, if that, scene of somebody just stating all of these things you've listed, Evan, and then the scene ends. Just like, I'm at home, I'm the only person at home, I want to eat, I have cereal, but I have no milk, and I don't have money to buy milk, so I'm going out for steaks. And then the scene ends.
Well, I feel like I remember David Greenberg, our screenwriting one teacher, doing something like that. I feel like I remember him having an example that he would go back to of like, my goal is to walk across the room. Now you need to make like interesting things to stop me from walking across the room. That's how you write a story, which I think is oversimplified.
That's a boring movie.
Well, it may be low stakes, but I think his point was just like it's about the journey. Maybe that's not the best comparison. If you do want to see that, I might recommend you go see the Mario movie, because that was something I saw in between watching this and doing this podcast, and it is baffling how they avoid having scenes in that movie. Truly, it is. I shouldn't get us off on the tangent, but like, I'll try to keep this relevant. It is truly baffling how they just will bring, like, I think the scene where Mario and Princess Peach meet, it's literally just Mario's like, hey, Bowser has my brother Luigi. I need to go get him. And she's like, oh, do you now? Well, I guess we'll go do that. And that's the entire scene. Like, they just aggressively avoid having dialogue scenes in it. And it's so strange.
Is it? That's a bad thing, right?
For that movie, it honestly was maybe kind of nice to not have them do that. But it's kind of that is kind of an example of what you were talking about. Or another thing, that this is part of why I got on this topic, because I followed up Silence of the Lambs with Revenge of the Sith as the very next thing that I watched. And there is no scene in that movie where somebody finds the game, ever, where things are very literally said. So I feel like that is maybe another example of the kind of thing you were talking about there, Jelani. Maybe it's not the best comparison. In terms of, like, other elements, like, is there anything that you feel like is missing or, like, just can be expanded upon from the list I put out with setting, characters, goals, resources, limitations, currency, and tactics, and stakes? Is there, like... I know we were talking about power dynamics, so, like... And maybe we don't need to get too deep into it, but I wanted to bounce a few ideas around with this. Because I think it's stuff that we do a little bit unconsciously sometimes when we're kind of... at least I find that I do when I'm, like, pantsing. Like, you can make a scene that has all of those without thinking about it, but I kind of want to be thinking about it a little bit more.
Something for vegans and vegetarians.
Oh, for steaks, yeah. We could figure out a substitute. I think sometimes the fun of a scene is withholding one of those elements and revealing it later. Like, the tension of any poker scene is that players don't know what the other players' resources are. Like, we know a lot of other things have been established. There's an amount of money on the table. We have rules. We know the currency, basically, if you know the rules of cards. But the players don't know what the other one has. It's kind of a literalizing of some of those elements. Or, like, the coin flip in No Country for Old Men. Do you guys know that scene with Anton Chigurh?
I've never seen it, unfortunately.
Okay,
Me neither.
then I won't go into that. And neither of you have seen Nightcrawler either, right?
No.
Ah, damn. Okay, because that was
No.
a scene with the... I'll quickly go through it. I feel like in No Country for Old Men, the coin flip, the stakes are withheld in that scene, and in Nightcrawler, there's the Mexican restaurant scene where I feel like he's like building all of his currency, but we don't realize it's currency, and near the end of the scene, he reveals his goal, and that's the fun of it. To turn into something that we are all familiar with, Another thing I was thinking about with this is scenes with Homelander and the boys. Like we've talked about in those episodes how those are always the most interesting. And I feel like that might be a lens to look at these like elements through, where Homelander always has the most resources in a scene, but because of certain other elements that are in place, like setting, I feel like is one that is always taken into account with him, where if he's in public, he's not gonna go full Homelander on somebody, but he might flex his power in other ways, or just like other people can kind of like they can use the presence of the crowd or other resources at their disposal to their advantage. Like I feel like some of these elements are very present whenever he's around, and that's part of why we find scenes with him so compelling. And I think that kind of extends to why Hannibal and the scenes with him are so compelling here, is that he does kind of have a Homelander level of power to some extent in this movie.
Yeah, I think that I would like put that as like knowing the central, at least for yourself, not for what the audience is going to be thinking of as the central conflict, but for you as the writer, what this issue is going to be. Like Hannibal has to be the hurl every single time to get her to where she needs to be, to eventually get her to Buffalo Bill and crack the case. And that's what's going to keep you there. Like with Mario, she's like, I need to save my brother. And she's like, well, okay. There's no, as Bill would say, you got to say no. If it doesn't say no, there's no scene. And it's like, there has to be some element of that. And same thing with Homelander, where he's just like the biggest no to me. Like he'll just do anything that everyone would say no to. Like he is conflict. He is just a maniac, and he's a nuclear bomb. And anytime he's anywhere, I'm just like, oh my God, when's it going to go?
Yeah, it's like I think the tension in almost any scene with him is, what do you not say to piss him off? Like, and
Stroke his ego.
Right. Well, but
I've read comments
I feel
on
like
this.
there's a number of scenes where like the tension going into it is, we don't know, like we as the audience don't know, and the characters in the scene don't know, like he might have already decided to kill them and he's just toying with them at this point. But sometimes you can say the right thing and get out of there. But you never know going into the scene. Is he in a mood to just kill you? Maybe. It's always a maybe.
Like when he made that one girl jump.
Yeah. That kind of thing.
Crazy.
I don't want to keep bringing it too much away from Silence of the Lambs, but one last scene that I was thinking of that we've talked about that I think comes up with, or at least as an example to use for this topic, is last year when we talked about Troy, Jelani, you got really hung up on that scene where Achilles comes to the gates and is yelling Hector's name and nobody shoots him. Like,
Oh my God.
and I was thinking more about that scene and like, why is that such a problem? What are the elements that aren't being used correctly? And I think it's kind of that, like, Hector has resources at his disposal that he's not using there. And
Yep.
you could have a conversation, like, I think in David Benioff, the writer of that movie, in his mind, I think he knows why Hector's going down. But he doesn't signal that to the audience well enough. Like, he doesn't signal to us that he has to go down because it would be a knock to his honor to not engage Achilles in this fight. I think that scene needs a moment where there is some back and forth before he goes down, of like, you don't have to fight him, son. No, I have to, because the representing Troy well, or something. But you'll die, probably, but representing Troy well. Something like you need something like that. That's a very bad version of that scene that I just played out there. But I think that is a place where, like, you need to establish, and even like Achilles coming to the gate like that, I think he understands what the stakes are there. He understands that Hector will accept. But we as the audience aren't clued into what the stakes are there and what the, like, resources and currency that's there is in play.
They should have shot him.
They should have. But again, I think you wouldn't have a problem with that, with the fact that they don't, if they had had a moment like that in the scene. Because you're right. The way the scene is there, and again, this is not the movie we're talking about, but like, the way the scene is there, you have enough room to be like, yeah, shoot him. You can, just do it. So, I don't know. That was just a counterexample to these kinds of scenes. And like,
Use your resources.
well, at least be aware of them. Like, Hector has
Right.
way more resources than Achilles in that scene. So how does Achilles bring him down, like break down his resources? And it doesn't even, like we're saying, or like I've been saying, it doesn't have to be a conversation between the two of them. It just has to be that, like, because I think you're supposed to read that scene as there is an understanding between them, but we don't know that. To bring it back to Silence of the Lambs, I think a scene where we are clued in very well in ways that the characters aren't is when Clarice finally meets Buffalo Bill. Like, that's a really great scene where the tension is, and like the game of that scene starts out as, is Clarice gonna find out? We know that, but the scene only works because, well, I don't want to say it only works because we know that he's Buffalo Bill, because I think you could kind of do that scene cold, and we don't know if like they had just not shown Buffalo Bill at all for the entire movie, and then we see the moth. I don't know. There's good elements at play there, and I'm not articulating them very well, unfortunately. But I think that scene does work because we understand the game. The scene is better because we know the tension of, is she gonna find out that this is him?
Yeah. Yeah, I forget which Shakespeare play in Drexel we were reading, but I think it was in A Midsummer's Night's Dream. Yeah, it was A Midsummer's Night's Dream. And it was when like they get like put under the love potion and whatever scene that is, and then they switch lovers and have their whole like affair. And like I remember the professor at Drexel being like, this all works because the audience is ahead of the characters. And like that's a very similar thing. Like the suspense in that scene completely works because the audience is one step ahead of Clarice, and you're looking back like, please make it, get up here with me. We want you to survive. You don't deserve to die. But you know she just walked into the most dangerous place she could go.
Yeah, I think you have to like you have to clue your audience into the right things, and maybe there's not like a solid strategy that is obvious from these scenes that we've been talking about, but it's important to know. Like, even there's some improv games that have very well established rules, but in order for them to work, you got to tell the audience what those rules are before the game starts. And in that case, you're doing it very literally. But I think in scripted things, you gotta signal. There's a thing that I hear people talk about sometimes, which is like, tell your audience how to watch your movie from the start. I think you kind of got to do that with some scenes as well. Like, you got to signal to them, because what's important in one scene might not really matter in another. Like, giving out personal information, if Clarice tells most people where she's born, that's not going to matter. When she tells Hannibal Lecter, it really matters. And we only need the one line to let us know that it does. But we have to know, or that scene doesn't work. I don't know, do you guys have anything to build on with that?
Not for me, but I do see what you mean. I agree with you. Because then it's kind of like the Homelander thing, where it's like, you can't be around Homelander because he's such a physical threat, and you can't be around Hannibal because he's such a mental threat. Like, you just can't trust that person at any time. So like, I think immediately when you have a character that works that way, like that's just the default setting for them. Like, they're just super captivating, at least for me as an audience member.
Yeah, and it's why I think a character like Hannibal is so enduring, is because we have his power established so well throughout.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like one huge, was it Bruce used to say, like A plus B equals C scenes, where two characters have to talk about a character and then you bring them in later and you see if what they said was true or not. And it's like, this whole movie is proving how right all of the warnings were to Clarice, and like in the literal senses, and then also just in more subtle senses, and watching how he just peels back the layers to her mind, and by the end gets everything he wanted and everything she was told not to give, and she doesn't even like realize it.
Another Bruce thing that I was thinking about with this was how he talks about bargaining scenes. I remember spending a lot of time on that in his classes. And maybe that's really where these rules that I'm laying, or not rules, but like elements that I'm laying out apply the most, is in those bargaining scenes where you have characters laying out resources or figuring out what currency matters to the other character and which doesn't. And then ending the scene is who wins that bargain, like who comes out on top. And this is just kind of like closing out the topic, but like one of the I was kind of thinking of it as like the scene ends when either somebody wins or there's a compromise. My improv teacher was saying compromise isn't interesting, change is. He likes to say that like the scene ends when somebody changes. I don't know if I get what he's saying. I think sometimes that works. I'm not sure if that's true of every scene. And maybe there's not like a one size fits all thing that does work for every scene. But it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. And I'm sorry I was a little all over the place with this topic. But I feel like this is a movie where, regardless of whether my, like, the lens I'm looking at this through is right, I think everything here is pretty on point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every scene knows what the game is and lets us know what the game is.
Oh yeah, it feels all very intentional and deliberate. It does not feel like, even in the direction, even if, when it's basic and they just do like a tilt up into like a bright sun and then it diffuses back down and we're back at the police. And I'm just like, you understand what you're going for. So that's always nice.
Yeah, I'm always impressed when a movie can just be so in tune with where its audience is at in the way that this is, and like trick us so well. Because I feel like that's something I used to aspire to a lot, and I think I overvalued it a bit. But it's also something that I don't feel like I am in tune with my audience enough to do. So I'm always really impressed when, as part of why the Knives Out movies are so impressive to me, because I feel like Rian Johnson just knows exactly where his audience is all the time in those.
I agree. Those are like usually my favorite movies to watch too.
And the fake out they do in this one, this was something that I had to be told about, and I'm so mad that I missed it the first time, or at least I think I did, where you think that she's not at Buffalo Bill's house and like
right,
the cops are there. I had to have that explained to me, and I wish I had just been able to clock that the first time, because it's such a good trick done. And it didn't, like, I just wasn't on the right wavelength.
I was so mad I didn't see it coming.
And your stomach just like falls out. Like you're like, no, Clarice, no, do not go into the house.
I was so ready for them to just barge in on Bill and start blasting. But
it's so good.
Like, that's not even something I considered. Like, the way it was shot made me think they were at their correct places.
And it's now making me see how much they pulled so much from Hannibal Lecter when they did Heath Ledger's Joker. I'm realizing, like, you have him in prison being super manipulative and stuff, and then they did the fake out address too, where you think Batman's going to get Rachel, and he's not.
And he gets his prison breakout.
Yeah. And he gets his prison breakout. I'm going to say that Silence of the Lambs kind of does it all a little bit cleaner.
Well, the Joker's not known for his
tidiness.
Wow. He's a bit more of a pantser. I think Lecter.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Lecter knows how to pants, or how to improvise, but
we gotta come up with a better term.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was trying to do like the planning pantsing thing.
No, I get what you're saying, but you're saying he knows how to pants.
He really knows how to put those pants on in the morning.
But he wears them good too, like nice and high up at the hip bone, like how your grandpa used to wear them, tucked in.
Yep, he really wears the shit out of that prison uniform. No, I think I feel like I see influence there, but no shade to the Joker. I think this is a little bit of a better written villain.
That ace.
That was the end of my topic.
So for this topic, it's gender in the workplace, and kind of the day-to-day conflicts that Clarice goes through just because she wants to. And this is what Jodie Foster said, what made her take the movie. She liked it because it's a woman saving a woman, and all the issues in between are men, and that's literally the movie. And I like a lot of it, I think, is in the direction, because besides like that one scene where she's like, hey, you know, they look to you how to act, and he's like, noted, they don't really talk about it. But all the different visual cues of like from the beginning when she gets on the elevator and they all look like they work at State Farm and they're all super tall and white and she's like at their shoulder, and then like to when they go later and they're all dressed in the same uniform again in the one room when he leaves her and she's just in the center like not in uniform and they're all looking at her. I think it's really well done, and like the running by and the people looking back. And I think it's smart because she's always one step ahead. She's the one who solves it in the end, and she gets to prove him wrong. And I always enjoyed it. I always, for whatever reason, tended as a kid to watch movies with female leads more than male leads. So it just was something that I didn't even really think of until I was older. But I think it's really well done.
Laurie Strode. That's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
X. Other ones.
Yes.
There are other ones. I've heard this described as like a reversal of the male gaze, and I think that's a very good way to put it. So that like you're kind of meant to feel what the male gaze feels like to be the subject of, I guess. I think it does that effectively. Again, I don't love the like right in the face POV shots, but the other ones do work for that. And I like the groundedness of it, like the way that Clarice deflects all of the microaggressions from her coworkers and the other people. She can't really get mad at them in those situations, so she just kind of has to like deflect, but she does it in a way that like kind of like she maintains her dignity. She doesn't like lower herself ever, but is just kind of like trying to diffuse. It feels really grounded, and Jodie Foster plays it excellently. Like I feel like in more recent years when movies try to like do feminism, I feel like it is coming from a very disingenuous place where you can just feel like the studio heads being like, feminism's trendy, so let's get like Jessica Chastain in a pantsuit saying things. And I enjoy some of those movies, like Molly's Game is excellent. Jessica Chastain in a pantsuit saying smart things.
Lucy?
I don't know if I want to count Lucy in that, but okay.
No, that has it. It's the female lead.
Oh, okay, yeah. Although she becomes basically not a person for 80% of it, so I'm gonna slightly push back against female lead. I mean, yes, but also, like, is Lucy a character? I don't know.
Split?
I'll accept Split.
I'll accept Split too. I
There's
haven't
three
seen
of
it in
them.
a while.
Aside from James McAvoy, I guess he's one of the leads too.
Yeah, but we are kind of in Anya Taylor-Joy's POV there.
Mm-hmm.
Forget her character.
The menu.
What she's feeling.
The menu.
The menu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Another.
Yeah, I think that we have good. It's not to say that like we haven't had other like good movies with female protagonists. It just feels like when this almost ages better than the version I hate the most is the way that like Disney remakes have been trying to like do feminism. You can just tell that it's coming from a very disingenuous place. Like
Mulan.
Yeah, Mulan is. Don't get me started on that. Yeah, okay, I just won't. but it like when it's done well, I'd like to see more. Like Promising Young Woman is an excellent, I think, spiritual sequel to Silence of the Lambs in that respect. Certainly a different genre, but I feel like that was another really good. Like, I feel like that movie hits for me as a man the way that Get Out hits for me as a white person, of, like, reverse... like, no, truly, like, Promising Young Woman is an excellent movie that I feel like just us as three dudes should never actually talk about, but is really good. I feel like it's just doing it in a very grounded way here, where you get what it feels like to be in Jodie Foster's shoes, and it's not being heavy-handed, and in that way is more effective. I took too long to say that, but yes.
I was gonna add, yeah, I enjoyed the level of subtlety to it. Like there wasn't a stark contrast or anything. Like they didn't add a character or woman who had been through this type of thing before, telling Clarice not to waste her time. If you're paying attention, it's hard to miss. But I think like they don't call too much attention to it or anything. Like it's not like a subplot or anything. It's just this exists at the time. Essentially, that's what they're saying, and it exists now. I'm not gonna say it doesn't exist now, but yeah, I think they did really well with this. Just several scenes made me uncomfortable for her. Starting off real strong with I think his name was Miggs. That scene, that was gross. Any scene with people hitting on her, all of those, like the guy with the butterflies, or wasn't there one guy? What guy did she go to and asked her if she liked cheeseburgers or something? It wasn't the butterfly guy. Like she went to a town and needed to see somebody about something, and he was.
Oh, I'm remembering the scene, but I'm not remembering who it is.
Yeah, and then the cops in the ruin scene, like when they were all looking back at her, it was like, yeah, it was really uncomfortable. But that scene, once she all asked them all to leave and they listened, I like verbally cheered for her. That was so cool. Yeah, I just think the movie did really well with it.
David, were there more places you wanted to go with that?
I don't know if this really fits in the theme. This is just kind of like a random thought I found when I was watching it this time. But like, so like the one cop dude sends her because she's green, and Hannibal won't suspect that there's an ulterior motive if he doesn't give her information. And it's like an intern and a student coming in. So he thinks he's going to get something out from Cannibal using her that way. And then Hannibal is also retroactively using Clarice to eventually enact his escape. So it was just kind of interesting to see like the two like most prominent male figures in the movie actively using the female character as a pawn while she still wins within this theme. I was like, oh wow, like this guy, even though he is like probably the nicest cop towards her, still kind of a terrible person to put like the cadet student who's had no experience right into the lion's den with Hannibal and all of that.
Yeah, it's interesting too that both of them are, in a sense, they're kind of allies to her in terms of solving the case. It's like Hannibal is helping her succeed, and Crawford wants her to succeed, but they're both obstacles. Like, and I feel like that's true of like everyone throughout. Like basically every person that Clarice interacts with, it's not like any of them are like rooting against her. Like they're not trying to stop her from solving the case, but the sexism that exists is still a hindrance. Despite like all these characters are on the same team, but it's always obstacles that she's coming up against, and I feel like that is a really effective way again to like put the audience in her perspective of like just her existing as a woman in this job is
An obstacle.
yeah, it's a challenge that she has to overcome at every step, even with people who like in a professional sense are like working toward the same goal as her.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's why I also enjoy when her one work bestie like helps solve where Buffalo Bill is when they were like looking at the map and she didn't understand like the one thing Hannibal said, and then she said it to her. Clarice said it to her, and then she was like, "Oh, it means this," and then Clarice was able to go off of that. Like that was the first time I think she had an exchange with a character who, one, it wasn't male. It wasn't a coincidence, I don't think, for that. And it's the one exchange where there's not like you said, a currency. Like there doesn't need to be something given or taken for this to happen. Like she has to give something to be in the good graces of the cop, and she has to give information to get information from Hannibal to then give that information to be in the good graces of the cop. Whereas like this woman is no obstacle for her; they're just able to crack the case. And I found that like we said, it's a very intentional and smart script, and it pays off that really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think even if you don't clock it consciously, like it's there enough that you can kind of feel it unconsciously. So it's effective in that way as well.
Mm-hmm. I feel that a lot through the direction. Like I think like the direction really I think brings you in to make you feel like just how gross it is for her. Well, this is the end, guys.
Very solid movie. Thank you for having us revisit it, because despite having seen it twice, I really have been sleeping on how good this is.
Maybe you should stop being so silent about it.
Well, we just talked for an hour and a half about it, so I think I accomplished that.
Of the lambs.
Yo.
So if we're done with that, then move to the boilerplate. Our next episode is going to be Into the Spiderverse. Psyched for that.
Yeah, boy.
I'll say this again when we do it, but I think if you took an average, like an average score of like all three of our ratings for everything, I have a feeling Spider-Verse would come out like maybe number one. I don't know what it would be second to. Could you guys think of anything?
Think this
I feel
is
like
gonna be the movie that all of us like the most.
yeah, and that's. I mean, not just we've done others that we all like, but I don't think as much as we all like. I think this is at least top 20 for all of us.
Oh, well, yeah, this is way more than top 20 for me.
This is number one for me. I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, well, then I guess I have it lowest at like 12, which is
okay. We're scrapping.
I really like it.
But it's not even in your top 5.
It's so good.
Listen, there's some other stuff that.
This is why you're not leading the episode, Evan.
Scene with his dad, and he like can't talk, and he's talking to him, and then he gets the powers and breaks out, and the leap of faith. That alone is like just like better than like 95% of all movies I've ever seen.
Totally agree. I am not like I truly have nothing bad to say about it. There's just like
now I want to know what's above it. You know what? Don't answer that, because then I want to fight you more.
No, I have to. Well, I don't know. It's really good.
Did you put Shrek 2 above this?
No. Stop. The only animated movie I would say is better, and I don't even want to say is better, that I enjoy more is Inside Out, and that's only because Inside Out literally like took a snapshot of my brain as a 12-year-old and made it a movie. So like nothing could like Spider-Verse could not be more personal for me than Inside Out, but it's really really good. Like, and
Please don't tell me the Amazing Spider-Mans are above it.
Nope, no, it's above. It's the number one Spider-Man for me.
Okay.
And I truly think that Across the Spider-Verse, I don't want to hold it to this standard, but I truly think Across the Spider-Verse could be my favorite animated movie. It could top Inside Out. I don't know if it will, but I think it very much has the potential to.
It's got Oscar Isaac, bro.
That doesn't do a ton for me, but I mean, I'll be glad to see him there.
He's in it.
He's in it.
No, it doesn't do a ton for me. There's still a star-studded cast though. Like
they got to bring back Nick Cage as Spider-Man Noir. I don't know if they are, but
there's a lot more
gonna be in the next one.
I want more of him.
I'm a cat.
I like to fight Nazis and drink Ed creams a lot. Yeah, so we have Into the Spider-Verse coming up next. For $1, you can access our Patreon with watch-alongs, bonus episodes, good stuff like that. We have our YouTube channel with video essays. You can check those out. And still leave comments on stuff like our not decade recap, our 2022 awards. You can still tell us which ones you wanted to win those. Our logo's by Kelsey Hendry. I am on Letterboxd at ev_wes. Where are both of you at?
Instagram, Jelani T. Kelly. YouTube, Jelani T. Kelly. And you can find me in the ring when I scrap with Ev for not even putting Spider-Verse in his top 5.
I like it. I love it.
I don't know if it's in my top 5, but it's in my top 10.
You can find me fighting both David and Evan at the same time.
Listen, we all agree that it's really good. We don't need to fight about this.
You wonder why we were arguing.
It's not
There was
our
a
number
point.
one by the time we record. He's gonna fight us.
No, yeah. But we were arguing at some point or discussing who should lead the episode. And
I
y'all
don't
ain't
think
even
so.
got
I
this.
think very quickly we said it was you.
No. I
No,
had to
you.
I had to fight and claw my way
That
to
was
the
not
top
a
of
fight.
that.
Listen, I think all three of us would have picked it eventually. Like any of the three of us would have.
I'm leading it.
Yeah, I'm no arguments, but
No, you got to argue with me to make my point more valid.
we all like it. We're all saying it's good.
Oh man.
Why is this conflict?
Like, even though there's John Mulaney, I still like it.
Oh, you like it in spite of the John Mulaney. Okay,
Yeah.
I like him quite a bit as Spider-Ham.
His voice is something. Some people, you hear, like, there's just, like, one voice for every person that makes you just, like, not like something.
Oh,
He has one of those
yes.
voices for me.
I can see that.
He's Andrew in Big Mouth.
Yeah, that's why I can't really get into that.
Yeah, him as the bad guy in Puss in Boots was not as good as I was expecting.
I still didn't see it.
Yeah, I think that'll be one that we do. Miguel has said he very much wants to come on for that if we ever do it, and I would be up for it. I quite enjoyed it. David, where are you at in this one? I have a guess.
Well, I'm going to dinner. I'll be attending the dinner. Hannibal already has my plate out, and he has my orange juice ready, so I'm really excited.
Orange juice.
Yeah, it goes really good with the human body. So
I thought you were going to be in the pit in Buffalo Bill's basement. I thought that was the more iconic location.
well, maybe we'll go there later in the night if the party is still like popping and we want to have an orgy in the pit. But we're gonna just
There's
fill
no
up.
room to do anything.
We could like stack on top of each other, so it would be amazing. But we'll fill up on the human beings first.
Well, make sure you're not at the bottom of that pile, because that sounds like you're just gonna die with that much weight on top of you.
It's an orgy, Evan. If at least one person doesn't die, it's not an orgy.
It's a Dothraki wedding.
Ah, Doth. Oh my god.
It's a dull affair.
Yeah. Well, that's any Game of Thrones wedding is a dull affair if there's no deaths.
I'll be getting ready to take a leap of faith. That's where I'll be on top of a building. Hopefully Homelander's not up there.
Oh my god, the payoffs on that are so good.
I have the leap of faith as my phone wallpaper, and then
It's a good wallpaper.
No, the lock wallpaper, and then the actual phone wallpaper when it's unlocked is Miles falling through the air. It's like a close-up shot.
All right. We'll see you guys next time with Spider-Verse.